because it's been 15 years, the events depicted in the next slides are based on true events. I haven't had the ability to speak with everyone that I mentioned in the slides. I want to apologize in advance, and I might say things that, that I shouldn't say. But who cares? Okay, it's not 100% serious. Let's just get going. Who am I? I'm Carl. As Greg mentioned, I started Laundroid in 2008, around the first DroidCon in London in 2009. I also started a business called Novoda, and we're a digital agency slash consultancy, and of course, I'm the keynote speaker for this year, and this is my story. Basically, it's a summary of this entire talk. Now, it's pretty brave of Greg to get me here, because last time I spoke was in 2011, when I spoke, I think, in one of those rooms here. And the topic was around the intent platform. I really enjoyed the app ecosystem and the app ability of basically decoupling the apps on Android and having content providers and intents basically decoupled the different apps so you could have an open ecosystem, okay? And I spent a lot of energy and time preparing slides and giving the talks and getting the community up to say, okay, look, we have an open ecosystem that is based on an open source platform. Let's get going and create more openness in Android. But, okay, I had to Photoshop myself in here because I couldn't find the actual picture. I got completely frozen. I couldn't say a thing on stage, okay? I mumbled. It was completely unclear. I felt awful, and since then, I decided to not talk. The reason for that is because the night before, and this was a time when sponsors were very generous with the amount of money they put behind the bars. And so we had this crazy night, and we drank the bar completely dry. And when I say completely dry, I mean like no tequila shots, anything. And then we went back to our office, which was not very far, and yeah, it was a crazy night. So the day, and so the time I was supposed to give my presentation, I had the biggest hangover. I couldn't read my slides. I felt awful, and I thought never again. So, I mean, luckily, this is the first talk in the first day, so without a drink yet. But my initial submission was not for the keynote, okay? It was for the enterprise room, which has less people, and it was much more focused on kind of the enterprisey things on how to build mobile apps at scale. Similar title, though. Except the intention behind the talk was a bit different. And so I just want to go over it very, very quickly. I won't bore you with too much details, okay? And so it's really about building mobile product at scale. And, it's like you create the team and blah, 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 blah. No, React Native will not solve your organizational challenges. Blah, 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 blah. DORA metrics. Blah, blah, mobile DevOps, blah, blah, blah. There we go. First lesson of today is something about efficiency. I'm not fully sure what it is, but basically human rights software. And so you have people communicating with each other, and you have better software, basically. And that applies for mobile as much as backend and web and so forth. OK. How did you drink with the mic like this? So what do you do in 2023? You open ChatGPT, upload the current title, the current description, and I say, make it more fun. Make it about 15 years of Android. Sprinkle a bit of history, and you get the description and the talk of today. And really, it's about the day I downloaded the SDK, all the way till today. Look at this. It's like live picture. And so it's a step-by-step approach of 15 years from one to the other. So if you want to do a keynote in 15 years' time, this is the 8 steps to do so. So step 1, choose the future-proof technology to invest in. So a step back here, 2007. I was 25, I think, if I remember correctly. My math's okay. I worked in the UK. I was better looking. Google was only 10 years old. They still had "Don't be evil" as a motto. Android came out in 2007. For remembrance, the SDK went 1.0 in 2008. The HTC device, as in the first G1, I think it was in 2009 or 2008 still. MySpace was still something. Facebook was just about to come about, and Nokia had more than 50% of the market share. Can you believe that? Nokia. I think, yeah. Nokia, what's that? iPhone were only 3% at that time, and that's when I decided to download Android. What I really loved about Android is its openness. From the get-go, it was supposed to be a collaboration between a lot of different businesses. They were called the Open Handset Alliance, driven by Google. And it was about to build a better ecosystem on mobile, more collaborative, more respectful of data privacy, that runs on Linux. That's an important thing because I'm a Linux user since 2000, and I cannot download iOS or play with iOS. So runs on Linux, and the idea of an open platform versus a walled garden was something that was really attractive to me. So another lesson here, more for SDK and platforms and stuff like this, is to make sure that it's supported on Linux. For the Linux users out there, I'm not sure how many Linux users are out there. Still something. Okay, step 2, build something and compete. So I downloaded the SDK. I was young in my bedroom. What next? So there was this thing, and I want to do a shout out to Wayback Machine, archive, because all this is not live. Yeah, I had to go back in time, including my website, which was funny. But there was this thing called the Android Developer Challenge, the original Android Developer Challenge, and you could win something like $250,000, up to 10 million. I mean, there was a pot of 10 million, and you could submit something. So, of course, I decided to submit something. I think in all there was 1,700 submissions in the first Android Developer Challenge, and then came about the second Android Developer Challenge. And luckily for everyone here, I found the video that I submitted back then. And it looks like this. Gives you a taste of, can I let up? It gives you a taste, come on. Okay, so this is the emulator. Remember, there's no device whatsoever. And that's how it looked like. First ever Android emulator. What I submitted, the app that I created was called Topophilia. It was about an open ecosystem around different apps that sits on your device, a kind of open platform that queries the content providers on the device to find all with the same location, and then just aggregate them in one space. It looks very dated. I appreciate that. I think it's not just my app. I think it's also just the SDK. I mean, to be honest, I didn't even change the design whatsoever. I didn't win. But it was a quite fun experience, kind of like first app I ever built. And I have another lesson, hire a designer. Yeah, could do with some, making it look a bit better. Okay, next lesson, start a business. Downloaded the SDK, build an app, wasn't successful at that, so the next big thing was to start a business around the Android platform. So this is IRC. Anyone familiar with IRC? Oh, wow, there's not many hands now. internet relay chat, the WhatsApp of the 80s. And back then, there was no blog post, no documentation around Android, nothing, because it was so new. And the only place where you could actually chat with people was on IRC, and this was this IRC with a special, like the Android room. And I was on it kind of all the time, evenings and weekends while I was building Topophilia. And at some point, I asked anyone from the UK. And this person with the handle Chom Chom said, yeah, I'm in Glasgow. His name was Kevin. I met him at Waterloo Station a couple of weeks later. Super excited to find the first Android engineer I can speak to. And he came with a list of interview questions. And so he interviewed me. I come completely unprepared. And at the end of the interview, he said, great, Carl, you passed the interview. Let's start a business together. So we started Novoda. And in 15 years, we changed the logo once. Above is, the previous logo. And there's a new logo, like this kind of wayfinder, because back then it was all about location. And so we started Novoda. It's not that we really had anything in mind, by the way. And people sometimes say Nevada, Novodo, Novoda. But we thought, okay, we want to do something with Android. We tried to build bits and pieces. And in the early days, the funny thing is, there was no devices. And that means no consumers. And so we would go to boardroom talking about Android, and people would say, but why should we build anything? I mean, there's literally no one using Android at this stage. And we're like, but it's going to be big. And then slowly and slowly, we started getting some traction. And then we built a few apps. And the first app we built is this one. It was called Vet8. It was, I appreciate the pictures a bit. It was released in Tanzania, actually. And the G1 just arrived in the UK. And Google gave a couple of devices to the Royal Veterinary College. And we built a data collection app for yellow fever disease within the cattle. And the idea is that you did data collection on the app, and then people, doctors, and so forth in the veterinary doctors, like in the UK, could look at the data and validate if you should take the animal out of the group. Okay, we didn't get paid. There was suggestion at that time that we might get paid later on when they get funding. They got funding, but we didn't get paid. The one day in which we got paid, though, was the first versions of the Timescape for Sony Ericsson. This was a really funny event that occurred in Paris. I don't remember, 2009, I think, something along those lines. And took the Eurostar, arrived, again, 27, 28. And they just announced this Timescape, this big event. And I was sitting with this person called Barbier. She was responsible for some of the apps. And she looked at me. She's like, "But are you an Android developer?" Like, yeah. No, but really, are you an Android developer? It's like, yes. And she was like, "Can you build this?" I'm like, "Yeah, sure." It's like, "How much?" I'm like, $5,000 or euros or pounds. She's like, "How fast?" We're like, 2 weeks? And then she's like, "And can you start tomorrow?" We're like, yes. And she said, "Great, let's do that." I came out, I remember calling Kevin, like, "Oh, yes, we first got our contract." And we ended up, to be honest, it took way more than 2 weeks to build. But we ended up taking over so many of their plugins, and this was this kind of activity streams. Before Facebook took over the social kind of space, you had one per country, so we built at least 7 or 8 different social network kind of plugins for Timescape. So that got us started. Now, the lesson here, aim low, it's okay, not get paid or get paid little when you start. That's what's exciting. Next step, start a community. So Laundroid. Anyone? Laundroid from here? Some? Yes, surely. Um, we started Laundroid pretty early. So early that we actually got the domain there, Android. meetup.com/Android. This was in actually 2007 it was created, and in the US they say it starts in the garages. I reckon in London it starts in pubs, and so in the early days we would just meet in pubs and just discuss the technology and see where to go from there. You can also see when history at Novoda when we hired our first designer to make the logo look a bit nicer. And I want to introduce our first protagonist here. I'm not sure if Wendy is about. She has arrived yet. No, she's late. Anyway, so we were in pubs, we were growing, and Wendy gave me a call, and Wendy found that Skills Matter, this is not, again, the current website, Wayback Machine from 2009 or 2008. And she was like, hey, Carl, I see you're running Laundroid. Why don't you come and run Laundroid at our units? They are specifically for this purpose. It's community-led. We have all the things to record videos and so forth. So yes, sure. And the first place that we run Laundroid within Skills Matter, the first offices, used to be Pink Floyd's recording studios in Clerkenwell. And I always loved that idea, that the place where we kind of exchange creatively our experience of working with Android is the same place where Pink Floyd created their music in the 70s. So if she's not here, thanks, Wendy. I think she's going to come a bit later on. And we grew in such a popularity that Meetup invited us over to New York. And so this was, again, like, for those who don't know, Meetup started after 9/11 as a place for people to connect. And they wanted to relaunch themselves into a more community event-led organization. So they organized this big thing in New York and contacted us because the Laundroid community was growing very fast, and probably one of the fastest growing community on the platform. And not only that, they also asked us to build a mobile Android app. So we did that as well, which was lovely to be able not just to participate and create the community, but also build the app itself. And so how does Laundroid fare today? We've been running 236 meetups, which is nearly 1.3 meetup per month since 2008. 5,400 members and growing. Average attendees is 70 plus. This was 2 months ago. This is Andre Breslov talking about the history of Kotlin at NatWest. We grow so well with Laundroid that many occasions when I go to meetups at the pub afterwards, people is like, "Hey, hey Wendy." It goes so well that at the end at the pub, people are like, "Ah, Novoda, the event company." So another lesson: make sure people know what you do if you want to sell what you do. Okay, so next step: share your knowledge. This is like one of the first events I went into the 2008, Wembley Stadium. We have the Laundroid, like learned to play with the platform, started Novoda, tried to find some work. And I got invited to present on the Android SDK for the Google Developer Days in 2008 at Wembley Stadium. And so that was my first kind of like tentative of sharing some of my experiences with the wider community. The picture here, kind of like before, and then here you have Reto Meyer, who became a director of developer relation at Google in San Francisco. He also wrote the first book on Android. And I presented again on content provider, intents, and all those things. Yep, the open ecosystem. And since then, until the event I mentioned at the start, I was just going and presenting and just sharing as much knowledge as I can. Anything that passed through my head, I put it in a presentation, and I try to share it hundreds of times, including internally at Novoda. I made it part of the culture. Even if it's crappy, it's okay. For all the speakers here, well done. For all those who want to become speakers, you should just go out there and speak, because my next lesson is whatever you know, there's always someone who knows less. So you might as well just share whatever you know. Step 6, which is probably the main reason I'm here, is DroidCon, yeah? So start a conference. Now, another protagonist that I want to bring into this story, this is Fredger. And Fredger had this project called Open Intent. And the idea of Open Intent was a registry of intent. And you could have like this kind of interconnected components on the platform rather than monoliths. And he built that. And then he also won the ADC Challenge 1 and 2, some of the apps that was part of the Open Intent. Now, he started DroidCon Berlin. And I don't remember exactly how, but we were talking just generally around technologies and Android. And in 2009, he was like, hey, Carl, why don't you come over with Kevin, this is Kevin, to DroidCon? And, it's the first Android-specific conference. And so I said, sure. We flew over to Berlin at night. We didn't book anything, no hotel, no tickets for DroidCon either. We just arrived at night. Luckily, the hotel attached to the conference was had still 2 rooms for us. And I always remember this big room. There was 350 people. And Boris was presenting, like Greg just did, like, welcome to DroidCon, the first ever Android-only conference. And just before it finished, he was like, anyone in the room doesn't speak German? It was like 2 hands up. It's like, okay, so we're going to do this in English. Hey, Boris. So, like this kind of welcoming community and welcoming kind of Berlin stage was really rewarding. The full days was really fun. And I was like, we need to do the same in London. So this is the first email between Fredger, myself, and Wendy. It's funny, in terms of naming, DroidCon is the chosen name. The format will be DroidCon plus city name. And this started basically the DroidCon London. The first DroidCon London was pretty small. And there we were about 80 people. I remember the talks were pretty low level. We had like Akshay there about running Scala. He has a coffee plantation now. Still in touch. We had talks around the audio processing on Android. We had like talks with RJ DJ, same thing, like audio processing for some reason. And one talk I want to especially touch on was from Gabor. Now, Gabor, funny chap, he was working at the R&D department of Nokia. And he was very, he wondered, how did the virtual machine work on Android? He couldn't understand how Android functioned in a way that would make it suitable for mobile phone. So he decompiled it. It was a time when I don't believe that Google had released the source yet. So he kind of figured out how to decompile. He presented, went over everyone's head. But one thing I remember him mentioning is that Nokia, they focused on having one microchip to do everything: radio, Bluetooth, Wi-Fi, etc., CPU, GPU. And the reason for that was Nokia thought to themselves, why would anyone charge their phone more than once a week? Assumption is the mother of all ops. Yeah? Now, 2010. we decided to go bigger. So we ran the first DroidCon in this Angel Business Design Center. We decided to run it all by ourselves. And a couple of things to note. We offered half-price tickets to Nokia engineers. We also got sued by LucasArts because of the term droid. I hope that's solved. I'm not sure. Am I saying too much? It was a time I remember when every single manufacturer would give out devices. We had hackathons. I remember this hackathon. I'm not sure if Al is here, but I remember this hackathon in between, let's say, the Thursday and the Friday. Everyone was exhausted, so nobody wanted to do the hackathons. But there was something like £10,000 to win, and there was 5 people, sending their apps, so you could win a lot of money back then. It was really, really fun, really, really successful, and then we continued on, in 2011 and so forth. But after 2010, there's one thing that was problematic is that we lost money. Little did you know that it takes a lot of time, effort to actually run a conference. So we decided to take a step back, leave the professional do their own work, Skills Matter and others. And so we were like, okay, that's all for us when it comes to conferences, but we still kind of participated in just the organization, but not the administration. So another lesson here is focus on the things you know, because otherwise, it doesn't work out. Now, grow. So, downloaded the SDK, started a conference, started a business. Now we grow. Okay. So, different places. We opened offices around the world a bit. There's New York City as well, but that doesn't really matter. Berlin was Fred Gare. He wanted to start something with Ronan. He said, why don't you start Novoda GmbH in Germany? Yes. Barcelona was because somebody went back to from the UK to Barcelona, and same with Liverpool. I mean, this was kind of organic growth. We were remote from really early on, pre-COVID, people working even from Mexico and other places in Europe. And of course, you grow in terms of team size. We got to a close of, 100 people at some point. And you build apps, tons and tons and tons and tons and tons of apps. We must have built hundreds and hundreds of apps. And it was going amazingly well, We were growing, until someone forgot to pay us £1 million. Now that's hard. This is not a joke. You ungrow. You could have closed down the offices. It was very difficult. Difficult, like anything, you learn. And to the point where it's blank, where's culture? You're 10 plus years into your business, you think you know what you're doing, things are growing, so of course I know what I'm doing, look at this, we have 100 people and so forth. And did I? I'm not really sure. I think we grew because the platform grew. And, this is the part where it gets a bit strange with the relationship to DroidCon, because I'm going to introduce another person here, and it's a clown, Pete Nash. So this guy I met at DroidCon 2013, or something like this, and he introduced himself as the only dev in the village. And I was with Jurek, who was the DroidCon Amsterdam person, and for some reason, when we were, in the middle of the crisis at Novoda, it was this kind of redundancies and all those things, and I was completely exhausted. Jurek sent me a message saying, look who I found online. Pete is doing stand-up comedy. And so I pinged Pete, and I was like, hey, Pete, I don't know what to do. Can you come and do something? Can we do a comedy night? So we did this weird comedy event, which is probably one of the weirdest most absurd thing I've done in my entire 15 years career. It's we did a comedy night a couple of months after the like redundancies, with people that were made redundant, reenacting the client that didn't pay us, the £1 million, in a way that I was like the savior trying to save the developers and so forth. It was catharsis. It's like I laughed and cried at the same time. But it didn't solve the problem. It was just at that moment in time where, okay, we're in this weird situation, the business is going into pieces, what do you do next? So this is the lesson that Pete told me. When your business is doing bad, hire a consultant. When your business is doing really bad, hire a clown. Highly recommend to follow this. Step 8, find purpose. And this is, when you come to think about it, like 12 years in, trying to build something on top of Android. And so the business is doing bad, I'm confused, and I will start to look for purpose. Now, at this point, I was really not sure what to do next. And the reality, I lost myself. I went less to Laundroid, I went less to DroidCon. I got like kids. I started questioning, what we're doing. I started questioning big tech. It's like Cambridge Analytica and all those things, like trying to figure out what to do next, thinking, are we the bad guys? It's like, because when I started, I remember thinking, I'm the good guys here. Like we're participating into building a better world, a more open world, a more connected world. And I'm like, I'm not really sure anymore. Surely we're the good guys. Yeah. So I went a bit of a journey, with the business and in myself, in trying to figure out what I want to do and what I want to do with the business. I started rekindling with Laundroid, rekindling with DroidCon. We rebooted Laundroid and so forth. But we also kind of shifted the business to have a better intention of interconnected and so forth. And so this is like a first announcement I'm quite excited about, which is since Monday, we're officially a B Corp. Woo! I mean, like, it's been a crazy, crazy, crazy year. I literally got the validation on Monday. For those who don't know what B Corps are, you kind of like score yourself around different things like governments, workers, community, environment, customers, and you basically shift your business to have, it's like people over profit type of mentality. You don't just focus on profit, you focus on different things like looking up how much CO2 emission you do and how much you govern your business and employee-led thinking. And so we started that journey, 2020, if I remember correctly, and towards those days, like it's been about 2.5 years, 3 years. But there's a final step here, and then I'll let everyone go. So the final step, like any agency, there's like this big intention of becoming something better. So the last metamorphosis of Novoda is to become a consultancy. And so, we basically answer 2 questions for customers. So the first is, how can we increase efficiency by using cross-platform technologies? And the second one is, how can we increase efficiency by moving away from cross-platform technologies? So my last final lessons, when your business is doing bad, hire a consultant. That's all for me. Thank you so much. I hope you enjoyed DroidCon.